Joining us now, former senior White House advisor for the past 3 presidents on cybersecurity and counterterrorism, Richard Clarke. He's the co-author of the new book, Warnings, Finding Cassandras to Stop Catastrophes. Richard, always good to see you.
Good morning.
Let's start with you on what we're seeing right now, just even over the last couple of weeks where you've had, we're going to see former Director Comey come out. We had former Director Brennan out yesterday, a special counsel appointed in the Russia investigation into the Trump campaign. What's been your takeaway over the last couple of weeks?
Well, I spent enough time in Washington. I was in Washington during Watergate, in the Reagan administration during Iran-Contra. This is highly unusual, even in the context, the historical context of Washington. But the good news, I think, is that Bob Mueller is now the special counsel. And he's meticulous, and he's a patriot. And if there is any there, he will find it. And if he comes out and says there wasn't any, I'll believe him.
We can all rest. Yeah. Okay.
Finding Cassandras is the subtitle of the book. Is there a Cassandra in this affair?
So a Cassandra...
Something that struck you as...
A Cassandra is somebody who sees the future accurately, predicts it accurately, predicts a disaster accurately, and is ignored. That's the definition in Greek mythology. Possibly Christopher Steele, because it does look like everything he said, or not everything, but the vast majority of the things he said.
Explain who he is.
So he was a British spy who retired, who had a lot of sources in Moscow, and was asked by some Republican who was running for president to do an investigation of Trump's Russia connections. And he found a lot of connections. And he also noticed that the Russians were trying to manipulate the election in favor of Trump. And he tried to get that information into mainstream media during the campaign, and no one would pick it up because it was just too outlandish. He actually fits the profile of all the 14 case studies in our book.
Let's talk about that, because your book's interesting. The first half of it looks back at catastrophes like Hurricane Katrina, the first Gulf War, ISIS, and you go through it and you look and ask, could they have been avoided? And the second half looks forward to what we should be concerned about. Let's talk about the first half. Yeah. Which of these catastrophes you examined was the most avoidable?
Well, I think the first Gulf War, if we had listened to the Cassandra, who was the National Intelligence Officer for Warning, that was his title, and he gave a warning 2 weeks before the war started. If that warning had gotten to the president, and President Bush had gotten on the phone to Saddam Hussein and said, I think you're going to invade Kuwait and occupy it, don't you dare do that, there will be huge consequences. We now know from the interrogation of Saddam Hussein that he wouldn't have done it.
Right.
Have we over the past several years underestimated the Russian skill set at espionage?
I don't think either the FBI or CIA has ever underestimated the Russian skill set. They're far better at it than we are. They're probably the best in the world at human intelligence and manipulation of information. You know, we hear about fake news now, but they've been doing this, called disinformation, for years. When Putin went to the KGB Academy, he took a course in disinformation. He took a course in compromat. That's what they did here. Compromat is stealing information and then publicizing it. That's what the hacking was on Podesta.
Why are they better at human intel than we are?
I think it's cultural. That may not be a politically correct response, but I think it's cultural.
So Richard, the second half of the book...
We're not good spies. We're too honest.
The second half of the book, you talk about case studies of modern-day crises and Cassandras who may be out there. Pandemics, AI, environmental turmoil, cyber hacking among them. Which of those concerns you most?
Sea level rise. Because our Cassandra, our possible Cassandra, Dr. James Hansen from Columbia, says that if his model is right, now he's an outlier like all the other Cassandras, but he's an expert. If his model is right, he says, within the lifetime of people alive today in Manhattan, half of Manhattan will disappear.
But there are people who've heard those warnings before in the past, and it hasn't happened, so you see why they tune it out at some point.
Right, and so what we've done in the book is a set of 22 criteria to judge, a template to judge when you're looking at someone like this. Are they likely to be right? Have they been right before he was? Are they an expert in their field? Are they data-driven? Has anyone been able to criticize their data? You go through all these criteria, and it works for him, and it's scary.
Richard, I want to ask you about Manchester. The president said while he was abroad that we're going to drive them out. He repeated it several times. We're going to drive these terrorists out. Can it be done?
Well, I don't know how you drive British citizens out of Britain, or French citizens out of France, or German citizens out of Germany. You know, so many of the terrorists who committed these awful atrocities in Europe were born there, like this fellow, who was born in Manchester. We've got to get at the root causes. You can't just simply say drive them out, which is code word for police and military action and intelligence action. We've got to do that.
Wait, root cause, though? What is the root cause?
There are at least two kinds of root cause. One is the ideology, which is very appealing to Muslim youth.
Right.
Extraordinary. So we have to counter message, but we can't do that. Muslims have to do that, and they're beginning to. The other set of root causes, in some cases, is socioeconomic. And in Europe, not in the Middle East so much. Many of the Middle Eastern terrorists are rather well off. But in Europe, there are people who are socially and economically ostracized and disadvantaged.
All right. Thank you so much. We greatly appreciate you being here. The book is Warnings, Finding Cassandras to Stop Catastrophes. Richard Clark, we appreciate it. Hope you come back.
Anytime.